Hello, hello. Time to talk about something a little bit more complex than usual, as far as oxygen not included is concerned. And in this video, I will aim to explain how automation works. And this is a little bit of a complex topic, so it may look a little bit unusual, and it may seem a little bit tough, especially if you are not well acquainted with the logic gates, which most of you probably aren't. It can be a little bit daunting, but bear with me, and I will try to explain what all this macho mambo means. So I have created a setup here. Basically, I have my tubes producing some battery power so that it is used with the lamps and with the gaseous element sensors. So 3 rooms, as you see here, with 3 element sensors. These little machines here basically recognize whether there is a specific gas in the room or around them, basically. And if you look at the automation here, the automation overlay, you will see that they are connected to the logic gates. And I have pretty much set up all of the 7 logic gates here. And what's happening right now is that this element sensor correctly recognizes hydrogen. This one correctly recognizes natural gas. And same here, correctly recognizes chlorine here. And as you see, you can actually tell by the white sign here. And so they basically recognize their gases. This means that they produce an output of 1. So output can be 2 states, right? Whether it has gas, the specific gas, or it doesn't have the specific gas. If it has the correct gas, it produces 1 as output. If not, it produces 0. That's fairly simple, right? It's a Boolean, as we say, situation, a Boolean result. And so when you set up automation, and let's say you have a gate here, this is the AND gate. So the AND gate gets input from 2 different inputs, gets its input from 2 different places basically. And as you see, the first place is this one, this element sensor. The second place is this element sensor. So both of these should be giving 1 right now as a result. That's why they are green as well, meaning that they can detect gas, they can detect the proper gas. This was, I believe, hydrogen and natural gas. So basically both of them return 1. Once they enter this gate here, this gate actually evaluates the result of the two elements, the 2 inputs, actually, through a specific filter, and that specific filter is what we are calling the AND gate. Basically, it's very simple. The AND gate means that one and the other, so A and B, should be equal to 1 in order for the output to result to 1 as well. That's basically it. It's as simple as that. So if both inputs are 1, then this will produce 1 as a result. If one of those inputs is 0, either one, this will produce 0 as a result, and it will basically send a negative signal, 0 here. And this 0 connecting to this lamp will basically turn it off. We can quickly see that effect by me basically changing this element sensor to, oops, I don't know why I'm saying that. Okay, instead of hydrogen, and actually let me turn on the automation overlay. Instead of hydrogen, now this detects helium, and so you see that this became red over here, and the result became red. Why? Because the AND gate evaluates to false. Not both inputs are 1, so that evaluates to false. Likewise, let's take it back to hydrogen, and this will change, as you'll see. So likewise, this is an OR gate. The OR gate, a simple way to evaluate it, is think about it like one or the other. Meaning that if either of those input signals are 1, then the output will be 1. This means that if we change this one, let's say back to helium, and this comes as red because it's 0 now, this still remains green. Because remember, it's OR in this case, it's not AND, not both of these are required to be 1. If either of those is 1, this will come as green. So as you have guessed, if I change this one now, and this becomes 0 as the output, so let's make it detect oxygen. This means that when we go back to our sensor, to our gate here, this now will be red, just because both are red. So neither one or the other, so neither are 1, so both are 0, so it basically evaluates to 0. So let's take those back to what they should be in order to be detecting the correct elements. So now they're going back to being white. So let's go back to the automation overlay. The next one is the Xor Gate. So think about Xor, it's a little bit more complicated, but not that much. Xor is actually means, or XOR, means exclusive OR, meaning that it's basically like OR, but if both gates are active, this evaluates to 0, so it's exclusive OR, so it has to be one or the other. So it cannot be both, basically. So if neither of those are lit, so if both are red, this will be negative also, it will be 0. If one of those two are green, this will be green. And if both of these are green, this actually is red, because remember, it's an exclusive OR, so they cannot both be active. So meaning that if I turn, actually I shouldn't be turning the overlay off, there's no need. So if I turn this off now, making detect iron instead, so it becomes red. So take a look at this here. So 1 here, 0 here. 1 and 0 is OR basically. So now it's green. So it's exclusive OR. It's one or the other. So if both become green, and so I turn it back to hydrogen. So now this becomes red because it's both now. It's not one or the other. So that's the difference between OR. So OR, it can be also both, like OR as you see here. Since both are green, this also becomes green. So the difference is that this becomes red when both are green. The next one is NOT. And NOT is basically the opposite of the input. It's very simple. So whatever comes in, the opposite thing will come out. If this is red, this will be green. This will be green. And if this is green, this will be red, as it is right now. That's fairly simple. The buffer gate, filter gate, and memory toggle are a little bit different. And the thing is that this thing here as it says here, becomes active if the system connected to its input is active. So let's give it actually 10 seconds. You can actually specify that. And right now it's active. So let's go back to our gaseous element sensor, switch that, take a look at this one here. So now you see that it takes 10 seconds. So right now this is green, because this is red, so this will eventually become red, but it takes 10 seconds to evaluate the proposition basically. So going back to hydrogen, it only takes 10 seconds when it becomes inactive, right? So when it actually changes, when I change it to become false, basically 0. So remains on standby when the element is not present. And basically the filter gate is the opposite of this. Let's take it back to hydrogen. So you see now this is the opposite. Now this is green, this will become green after 10 seconds. So basically this allows you a little bit of time to perform some some things that you want to do before you change the actual output. Which basically, remember that the output here becomes input for something else for the most part. And you can obviously combine all these. One exercise that you could do, if you want to, is try to recreate XOR, the exclusive OR, with multiple gates. And this is a very standard exercise that you do if you are working in the computer field, in the computer engineering field. So there's actually a way to evaluate. Oops, we're having suffocating people. Yeah, I don't even know what they're doing. Yeah, I need to feel, because this is I have created all this with a debug overlay, obviously. So I can fill them in with some oxygen, but it doesn't matter right now. I'll just pause. And so yeah, you can try to evaluate XOR, the exclusive OR, just by using AND gates and OR gates. And there is actually an expression that does that now. And I can probably write it here, just for easiness purpose. It's gonna be something like, I believe it's something like this, if I remember correctly. So basically, this is when both of these, actually, yeah, this is a little bit tough. So this means X and the opposite of Y. So you also need not. So this is going to be, let me write the whole thing, X and not Y. That's what this means. So let me write it actually with so X and not Y, or X, not X, sorry, not X and Y. So that's what this expression means. And we basically, I basically substituted the symbols. So the quick way to write it is something like this. Oops. And that's the quick way to write it. So basically, when two things are together, sort of like the multiplication is AND. This is OR, and this is NOT. Here, the NOT of Y. So X and not Y, or X and not, sorry, my bad, sorry, not X and Y, or X and not Y. So that's how you should be evaluating that. You can try to construct that, and you'll see that this will be producing XOR basically, just as an exercise if you really want to mess with these things. But anyway, this is what the filter gate and the buffer gate does. And the memory toggle, oops, here, it says becomes active when the logic port is active and goes to standby when the reset port is active. So I have connected one more thing here. This is the gaseous element sector for a third one for chlorine, and this is proper right now, as you see. And I probably have to, somebody may suffocate actually, but okay, so here this, I think I have to fix that because this is gonna be a pain. So yeah, I'll have to fill in some oxygen, I guess. It's a little bit unexpected, but okay. So paint some oxygen here. Okay, just to make sure that they don't suffocate, and that should be enough. I don't want them to be distracting me. Okay, so going back to the automation overlay. So as you see here, let's so this runs right now, and this is green, but basically this is still red here. So as you see, right, so becomes active when the logic port is active, which it is. You see the logic port is active, it comes as active, and goes to standby when the reset port is active, though, and the reset port is this one, which is active. So if I switch that from chlorine to something that is not, like polluted oxygen, this becomes inactive. So now this becomes active. And basically the way you would use that is by evaluating an expression here. Let's say this happens, for example, you reach a specific state, and then you are waiting for something else to happen before you proceed with your results. So it could be anything, like waiting for a specific temperature, for example. Like you may be gathering some water, for instance, that you may want to pump, to pump somewhere. Once the temperature of the room reaches the specific temperature, for example. That's just an example. So you detect the temperature of the room, and then you just pump the water once that happens. So something like that, Basically, it's, something is ready, but then you are waiting for another evaluation. So you're waiting for something else to happen on top of that. So that's basically it. I know it's a little bit complex, it's a little bit complicated if you're not well aware of logic gates. But if you think about it, it's a simple idea. If you are not aware of it, just think about it as evaluating expressions and evaluating inputs. So basically two inputs, and evaluating them and producing an output. This is very, very core to how your computer works, actually. All these gates are very, very important for the way your computer works. So AND, OR, XOR, not very, very important gates. Basically, these are the four most most used ones. And so yeah, this is an interesting topic regardless. I mean, regardless of oxygen not included. But if you're playing the game, you can find yourself using those if you know what you want to do. They can actually help you in some situations, and they are not necessarily needed, but they can help you, with automating things and making your life easier. So at least know that you need to be using automation wire for some situations because it helps you, and other cases are like these are the more complex cases. But a simple thing is, for example, when you have a whole generator, let's say, because almost everything is bound by automation. So oops, that's a little bit unfortunate, the placement there. I guess I can deconstruct that. And let's destroy some of the floor here. So let's picture that there is a coal generator here, and there is also a battery, a smart battery. So here, and so these things are connected, and this is something that you see me doing a lot in my games. So basically this doesn't have coal at the moment, but that's okay, they will probably add some. So now there's no automation here, so this thing fills the battery because they are connected with power, and that you know, it will keep it will continue working like forever. So okay, so now it gets coal. Did it actually get coal? Anyway, so yeah, it did. So you see that this is gonna be filled, but even if this is filled completely, this will still continue working. So once it gets more coal, it will basically continue working. Let's actually stop that. I want them to. Do they actually have? It would be nice to have some more coal. Anyway, it doesn't matter so much. But so you see, this is full here, but this will continue working. I mean, you see, this is just idle right now, probably because it doesn't have enough materials. But once you get it with automation here, so once you connect the automation wire to this, it basically tells it that when I reach a specific threshold, and this is like 100% full, just stop working. So now you see that it's actually disabled by the automation grid. So it's basically this thing here that disables it, and not, you know, the batteries on the grid, for example, and the threshold. So yeah, this is basically a very nice way and a very standard way to not be producing more power than you actually need and basically waste it. So yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Hopefully that helped you. Again, the idea was mainly to explain a few things about the logic gates. Try to be as you know, as easy as possible. If something doesn't make sense, and if you think that you would like to learn some more topics or some specific things about automation, let me know, and I will probably create a second part. But hopefully that would be this has been useful for you. You can play with it a little bit with the debug menu if you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to you. I know that my wiring is not the best here, but okay. In case this was a little bit weird to follow, it's basically, you know, two inputs here, one here. And for all the ones that require one, it's only this one, so that's how it is. And for the last one, I also used the reset. For the reset part, I used the reset toggle, I used a third one. So that's it. And thanks for watching, and hopefully that was interesting for you. If it was, please leave a like. That will help, and that will help others reach the video as well. Thank you, and I'll see you soon with the next video. Bye bye.